Welcome to Readings in English, where learning English becomes an exciting journey through captivating stories and heartfelt tales. The English language opens doors to endless possibilities. It connects cultures, builds friendships, and unlocks knowledge from all corners of the globe. Here on our channel, we bring you stories crafted to enhance your English skills, whether you're a beginner or simply love a good story told in English. Through these tales, you'll discover the beauty of language, improve your vocabulary, and find new ways to express yourself. Today's story, The Grandfather's Promise, is a heartfelt journey of legacy and perseverance. Hiro, a young man from Japan, uncovers his grandfather's cherished dream to visit America and learn English. As Hiro steps into his grandfather's shoes, he faces challenges, learns about resilience, and discovers that dreams are never bound by time. Get ready to dive into this inspiring tale, where every page brings Hiro closer to honoring a promise that transcends generations. So sit back, relax, and join us on this linguistic adventure. Let's read together, learn together, and make every story a stepping stone in your English journey. Hiro knelt on the tatami floor of his grandfather's old room, his hands dusting off forgotten memories. Since his grandfather's passing, the room had remained untouched, a place his family rarely entered. But today, Hiro had taken it upon himself to sort through the relics, a task his mother had long postponed. As he moved old trinkets and faded photographs, he stumbled upon a small, leather-bound notebook tucked behind a wooden box. Its edges were frayed, and the cover had faded from a deep brown to a soft tan, the words barely legible. Curious, Hiro flipped open the notebook. Inside, handwritten English phrases covered each page, accompanied by neat translations in Japanese. Each phrase carried a sense of wonder and hope. His grandfather had taken meticulous notes, as if he had been preparing himself for an adventure that never came. As Hiro scanned the pages, his chest tightened. One line, written in shaky handwriting, caught his eye. "One day I will see America." He had heard fragments of his grandfather's dream in passing, a wistful desire to visit America and speak English. But in his grandfather's time, it had been impractical, even impossible. Financial struggles and family responsibilities had anchored him to their small seaside town, leaving his dream as nothing more than ink on paper. Hiro ran his fingers over the delicate pages, sensing the weight of an unfulfilled promise. That evening, he sat with the notebook in his lap, the words echoing in his mind. The phrases were simple, basic greetings and questions, but to his grandfather they had been steps toward a distant, hopeful future. Hiro felt a pang of sadness. He wondered what it must have felt like to hold on to such a dream, knowing it might never come true. The idea began as a whisper, barely noticeable at first, but it grew louder with each page he read. Maybe, just maybe, he could pick up where his grandfather left off. The thought of learning English seemed daunting, But the dream wasn't about practicality, it was about honoring the memory of someone who had meant the world to him. His grandfather's words seemed to linger, pulling him into a silent promise he felt ready to make. The next morning, Hiro found himself standing in front of his school library, his grandfather's notebook tucked under his arm. The English section was small, just a single shelf, yet it felt as intimidating as a mountain. Hesitating, he reached for a thin book titled Basic English for Beginners. The sentences seemed foreign, rigid in his mouth when he tried to pronounce them. He knew only a handful of English words from school, and even those had felt distant, disconnected from his life. As he flipped through the pages, a familiar voice interrupted him. "Hiro, are you studying English?" It was Takumi, his classmate, whose casual curiosity quickly turned to excitement. "I didn't know you were interested in English. I'm learning too. My father says it's useful for business." Takumi's enthusiasm was infectious, and Hiro felt a sense of relief to have someone to share this with. "Yes, well, sort of," Hiro replied, glancing down at the notebook. "It's more for personal reasons." Takumi nodded with understanding, noticing the worn notebook Hiro clutched. "Is that from your grandfather?" Hiro explained briefly, feeling an odd vulnerability as he recounted the story of his grandfather's dream. Takumi listened intently, nodding with empathy. "It's a noble reason." Hiro, learning English to fulfill his dream, sounds like something meaningful. "Maybe we can study together." They agreed to meet the following weekend, turning their study sessions into small adventures. Takumi introduced Hiro to English movies with subtitles, showing him how to catch small phrases and expressions. Slowly, Hiro's understanding began to grow. The initial shock of the language faded into intrigue, his curiosity fueled by each discovery he made, yet his progress felt agonizingly slow. Pronouncing words correctly became a puzzle of sounds, and sentence structure seemed like a maze with no clear path. One evening, after hours of struggling with a single paragraph, he felt a wave of frustration wash over him. "Maybe this is too much," he muttered, feeling the weight of his grandfather's dream pressing down on him. But he couldn't shake the memory of the delicate words in the notebook, each line a promise his grandfather had held close. Hiro took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and imagined his grandfather's voice, encouraging him to push forward. In that moment, Hiro made a quiet vow to learn, no matter how hard the journey might be. As the days passed, Hiro began integrating English into his routine. Every morning, he practiced basic greetings and short sentences, repeating them quietly as he walked to school. On the weekends, he and Takumi gathered at the local cafe, turning their study sessions into focused yet enjoyable moments. They challenged each other, learning simple conversations and correcting each other's pronunciation. Despite Hiro's early struggles, Takumi's constant enthusiasm kept them going. However, learning was far from easy. During an English presentation in class, Hiro gathered his courage to speak a few sentences. He had spent the night practicing, ensuring his pronunciation was close to accurate, and rehearsed until he could say each word naturally. But as he stood before his classmates, his nerves took over. His voice shook, and the words felt unfamiliar as they left his mouth. A few classmates chuckled, and Hiro's face grew hot with embarrassment. The laughter echoed in his mind, and he felt each giggle as a reminder of his inexperience. After class, he quickly gathered his books, avoiding eye contact with anyone as he made his way home. That night, he opened the notebook, staring at the phrases his grandfather had written with such hope. It felt almost impossible to believe he could ever speak fluently, much less fulfill the dream his grandfather had cherished. For the first time, Hiro doubted if he was truly capable of carrying this weight. Takumi noticed his friend's discouragement the next day and pulled him aside. "Hey, don't let them get to you. Everyone has to start somewhere, right?" His words were simple, but the sincerity behind them struck Hiro. Takumi was right. Even his grandfather had started with these small, hopeful phrases. With renewed determination, Hiro decided he wouldn't allow one moment of embarrassment to derail his efforts. He would move forward, one step at a time. With his resolve renewed, Hiro continued his studies, each word and phrase feeling like a tiny victory. His progress was slow, but each small success gave him a sense of accomplishment. One afternoon, after staying late to finish his homework, Hiro noticed his English teacher, Mr. Sato, sitting alone in the classroom, marking papers. Hiro hesitated but finally approached him, seeking guidance. "Excuse me, Mr. Sato," he began, his voice filled with a mix of hesitation and hope. "Do you have any tips on how I could improve my English? I've been studying, but it feels difficult." Mr. Sato looked up, surprised but pleased by Hiro's eagerness. "Of course, Hiro. Learning a language is like planting a seed. It takes time, but with care, it grows." He closed his notebook and invited Hiro to sit. "Why are you so interested in English all of a sudden?" Hiro shared the story of his grandfather's unfulfilled dream, showing Mr. Sato the worn notebook filled with English phrases. Mr. Sato listened thoughtfully, his gaze softening as Hiro spoke. "Your grandfather sounds like he was a wonderful man," he said. "It's a beautiful reason to learn. I think he'd be very proud of you." Mr. Sato offered to tutor Hiro after school, guiding him through pronunciation exercises and teaching him conversational basics. Each session became a lifeline for Hiro, and he found himself looking forward to the time spent with his teacher, Mr. Sato shared stories of his own experience studying abroad, encouraging Hiro to embrace mistakes as learning opportunities. Slowly, Hiro began to shed the fear that had been holding him back. The sessions became a weekly ritual, a space where Hiro felt supported and understood. Mr. Sato's words lingered with him long after each lesson, and Hiro's confidence grew with every session. With his teacher's support, he found himself no longer hesitating over each word. The memories of his grandfather's hope, combined with M.R. Sato's encouragement, fueled his determination. One evening, as he reviewed the phrases his grandfather had once cherished, Hiro smiled. The path was challenging, but with Takumi and M.R. Sato by his side, he felt as though he was moving closer to something meaningful. His grandfather's dream was becoming his own, and the weight he had once feared now felt lighter, like a guiding hand leading him forward. As Hiro's understanding of English grew, he found himself drawn back to his grandfather's notebook with renewed fascination. Each evening, he carefully turned the delicate pages, taking in the phrases his grandfather had once practiced with such enthusiasm. Words like hello, good morning, and thank you were scrawled in uneven handwriting, as if his grandfather had written them while filled with hope and excitement. One particular entry caught Hiro's attention. One day, I will visit the great cities and talk to the people there. The phrase resonated deeply with Hiro. The idea of his grandfather, someone he had always seen as quiet and reserved, harboring such a bold dream, made him see his own journey in a new light. This wasn't just about learning English anymore. It was about connecting to his grandfather's spirit, carrying forward the dreams that time and circumstances had denied. Using the notebook as a guide, Hiro decided to focus on the phrases and words his grandfather had written, almost as if they were a syllabus designed especially for him. As he repeated each phrase, he imagined his grandfather's voice speaking them, lending him strength and patience. Every word felt like a small step closer to fulfilling the promise he had made, a way to bridge the gap between the past and the future. In moments of doubt, he would return to a particular page where his grandfather had scribbled a personal message: "Don't give up." Every journey begins with small steps. Hiro took these words to heart, treating them as a mantra. With each small step he took, he felt his bond with his grandfather grow stronger, and his confidence increased steadily. The notebook became more than a tool. It was a companion, a reminder of why he had started this journey. As Hiro's commitment deepened, so did the tension at home. His mother had always been practical, focused on the necessities of life, and she struggled to understand why her son was spending so much time on what she saw as an impractical pursuit. One evening, after noticing Hiro's stacks of English books and his habit of practicing loud, she finally voiced her concerns. "Hiro, I've noticed you're putting a lot of time into this English study," she began cautiously as they sat down for dinner. "Don't you think it would be better to focus on subjects that will help you here, where we live?" Hiro paused, taken aback by her tone. "Mom, it's something I want to do, not just for me, but for Grandpa. I think he would have wanted this," she sighed, her face softening. "Your grandfather had many dreams, Hiro, but life doesn't always allow us to follow them. We have responsibilities, things that need our attention." English isn't necessary here. Her words, though spoken with gentle concern, felt like a blow. Hiro felt a surge of frustration. He had never questioned the importance of honoring his grandfather's memory, but in that moment, he realized how deeply he desired his mother's support. The idea of his journey being dismissed as a distraction only fueled his determination, though it weighed heavily on his heart. That night, Hiro sat alone, struggling to focus on his studies. The support from Amar, Sato, and Takumi had given him strength, but his mother's doubts cast a shadow over his progress. He questioned whether he could continue to carry his grandfather's dream in a way that balanced both his family's expectations and his personal aspirations. In the following days, Hiro poured himself even more into his studies, using his frustration as fuel. Each sentence he practiced, each phrase he memorized, felt like a small rebellion against the doubts around him. His grandfather's notebook became a lifeline, his silent promise grounding him amid the conflicts he now faced. As he immersed himself in his lessons, he found a sense of peace and purpose that pushed him forward, a quiet resolve that whispered he was on the right path even if others couldn't yet see it. As Hiro's passion for English grew, so did his friendship with Takumi. They often spent weekends together, finding creative ways to incorporate English into their activities. Takumi, with his playful nature and supportive attitude, made the learning process enjoyable, turning it into something Hiro looked forward to rather than a task to dread. Their study sessions transformed into lively discussions, where each of them would attempt to speak about their day entirely in English, laughing at their mistakes and helping each other improve. One afternoon, while watching an American movie with subtitles, Takumi paused the scene and repeated a phrase, his pronunciation exaggerated and playful. Hiro laughed, mimicking him, and soon they were both attempting to imitate the actors. The exercise, though silly, gave Hiro a chance to practice speaking freely without fear of judgment or failure. With each phrase he tried, he felt his confidence growing, buoyed by Takumi's support. Their shared experiences brought them closer, and Hiro began to see Takumi as more than just a classmate. Takumi's encouragement reminded Hiro that he didn't have to carry his grandfather's dream alone. Together they explored the intricacies of language and culture, marveling at the differences and laughing at their misunderstandings. Hiro felt a renewed motivation, realizing that he was not just learning for himself or his grandfather, but sharing the experience with a friend who genuinely believed in him. With Takumi by his side, Hiro's small victories felt more significant. He started seeing progress, understanding fragments of conversations in movies, and feeling a thrill when he managed to grasp the meaning without subtitles. Each accomplishment, no matter how minor, reinforced his determination, making the journey feel lighter and more achievable. As Hiro's confidence grew, he decided to challenge himself by participating in a small English-speaking contest held by the school. The thought of speaking in front of an audience made his stomach churn, but the desire to test his progress outweighed his fear. He signed up, his hands shaking as he filled out the registration form. Takumi cheered him on, promising to be in the audience for moral support. In the days leading up to the contest, Hiro devoted all his spare time to practice. Mr. Sato helped him refine his speech, guiding him through each word, ensuring his pronunciation was clear and his delivery smooth. Hiro spent hours in front of the mirror, rehearsing until the words felt natural, focusing on every gesture and tone. On the day of the contest, as he stood backstage, Hiro felt the familiar weight of anxiety settle in. His palms were damp, and his heart raced as he peeked through the curtains at the audience. When his name was called, he took a deep breath, recalling the words his grandfather had written in the notebook. Every journey begins with small steps. He walked onto the stage, his gaze briefly finding Takumi's reassuring smile in the crowd, grounding him. Hiro began his speech, his voice shaking initially, but growing steadier with each sentence. He spoke about his grandfather's dream, sharing the emotional journey that had led him to this moment. The audience listened intently, and as he reached the final lines, Hiro felt a surge of pride. The applause that followed was modest, yet it resonated with him, filling him with a sense of accomplishment. After the contest, several classmates approached him, expressing admiration for his courage and dedication. Their words of support meant more to him than he could express, and for the first time he felt as though his efforts were truly paying off. Takumi congratulated him with an enthusiastic clap on the shoulder, his pride evident. The experience left Hiro with a renewed determination to continue. His grandfather's dream had brought him here, but now it was his own journey as well, one that he was beginning to love. Each step, each small victory built on the last, leading him forward, closer to a future he could now imagine. While Hiro's progress in English had brought new purpose to his life, he continued to feel the weight of the expectations and responsibilities his family placed on him. One rainy afternoon, as he was sorting through his grandfather's belongings in the storage shed, he stumbled upon an envelope addressed to him. The handwriting was unmistakable. His grandfather's careful strokes formed each letter with precision. Hiro's heart raced as he unfolded the letter, feeling a mix of excitement and reverence. The letter was written in English, in the simple phrases his grandfather had worked so hard to learn. As Hiro translated the words in his mind, he felt the full weight of his grandfather's intentions. "Dear Hiro," it began, "if you are reading this, it means I am no longer there to say these things myself." Hiro swallowed, emotions swelling in his chest as he continued. His grandfather had written about the dreams he never fulfilled, his hope to see a world beyond their small town, and his regret that he had been unable to share that world with Hiro. But the most moving line was near the end. "Hero, I hope you will one day see what I could not, and that you will learn not just the language, but the spirit of the world it represents." The letter was an invitation, a message from a past generation to continue a journey left incomplete. Hero could feel his grandfather's yearning, his quiet ambition woven into every sentence. The letter affirmed his dedication, giving him clarity on the journey he was meant to undertake. Hero clutched the letter, feeling a deep sense of connection to his grandfather that he hadn't realized was possible. This was no longer just about honoring a memory. It was about embracing the vision his grandfather had cherished. From that moment, Hero felt a surge of responsibility to take his studies seriously and pursue the dream with even greater determination. Inspired by his grandfather's letter, Hero's dedication to learning English intensified. He began to take on additional chores around the house and tutoring jobs at school, hoping to save up enough money to eventually fund a trip to America. Every penny he earned went into a small savings box he kept hidden in his room, and he began to carefully plan out what he needed to make the journey possible. The sacrifices were difficult. He gave up on outings with Takumi and declined invitations to social events, choosing instead to study or work late into the night. His mother noticed the change, and although she still had her reservations about his pursuit, she couldn't deny the commitment her son was showing. It was as if he were honoring an unseen promise, one that had taken root deep within his heart. One evening, as Hero was finishing his chores, his mother approached him. "Hero, you've been working so hard. Are you sure this is what you want?" Her voice was gentle, a rare softness that showed her concern. Hero looked at her, remembering the words in his grandfather's letter. "Yes, Mom. This isn't just about learning English or going somewhere new. It's about carrying on something that meant a lot to Grandpa. I feel like this is something I need to do." She listened in silence, her expression thoughtful. Although she didn't fully understand his motives, Hero could see a hint of pride in her eyes. With a nod, she placed her hand on his shoulder before retreating, leaving Hero alone with his thoughts. For the first time, he sensed a shift in their relationship, a tentative acceptance of his dream, even if it was still unspoken. The days became a blend of hard work, study, and saving, with Hero's focus sharpening into a determination that surprised even himself. Each sacrifice brought him closer to his goal, each challenge a reminder of the promise he was fulfilling. The hardships he faced no longer felt like obstacles, but stepping stones, guiding him toward a future he was building with every small step. His grandfather's dream was becoming his own, and with each passing day, Hero knew he was growing not just in language, but in spirit, carrying forward the legacy of resilience and hope. Hero's commitment to his studies and work had pushed him to new limits, but the exhaustion was beginning to take its toll. Balancing school, his part-time jobs, and the relentless practice of English became an overwhelming challenge. One evening, as he prepared for a critical English exam, the words blurred before his eyes and nothing seemed to make sense. The complexities of grammar, idioms, and syntax felt impossible to master, as if he were trying to fit pieces of a puzzle that simply refused to align. Frustration welled up within him, and for the first time since he had begun this journey, Hiro allowed himself to question the path he had chosen. He thought about the sacrifices he had made, the social events he missed, the fatigue that haunted him, and the strain his commitment had placed on his relationships. He wondered if he was truly capable of honoring his grandfather's legacy, or if he was merely chasing an impossible ideal. His mother's voice echoed in his mind, her pragmatic doubts resurfacing. Perhaps he was putting too much faith in a dream that didn't guarantee success or fulfillment. With his energy drained, Hiro slumped at his desk, a weight of self-doubt pressing heavily upon him. He stared at his grandfather's notebook. The pages that had once inspired him now seemed distant, almost unreachable. That night, Hiro went to bed feeling lost, the resolve that had once burned brightly now a faint flicker. In his sleep, he dreamed of his grandfather, who looked at him with both kindness and expectation. As Hiro opened his eyes the next morning, the dream lingered. Though the doubts remained, his grandfather's imagined gaze seemed to silently urge him to push on, to see this journey through to the end, regardless of the outcome. Hiro woke with a renewed, if tentative, sense of determination. He decided to seek guidance from Amara Sato, hoping that his teacher's wisdom might help him regain focus. That afternoon, Hiro waited after class, watching as Amara Sato packed away his teaching materials. When the classroom had emptied, Hiro approached, feeling a weight in his chest as he gathered the courage to speak. Amara Sato, he began, "I've been struggling. Sometimes it feels like I'm not making any progress, and I wonder if all this effort is even worth it." Mr. Sato regarded him thoughtfully, his eyes filled with understanding. Hiro, learning something new, especially a language, is not a straight path. There are times when it feels impossible, but that's exactly when you need to remember why you started. Hiro took a deep breath, thinking back to his grandfather's notebook, the letters, and the promises he had silently made. "It's because of my grandfather," he said softly. "He wanted to see the world, to experience something beyond our town. I felt like I owed it to him, Mr." Sato nodded, his gaze steady. "Then carry that with you, Hiro. Remember, learning is not just about reaching a destination. It's about the journey, about becoming someone who sees the world with new eyes. Your grandfather's dream lives through you, and every word you learn, those words resonated deeply with Hiro. His purpose wasn't only to master English or to visit America. It was to honor the memory of someone who had inspired him. Hiro left that conversation with a sense of clarity, a rediscovered motivation, that reminded him why he had persevered through every challenge. That evening, he returned to his grandfather's notebook, reading each page as though seeing it for the first time. The words, once daunting, now felt like a roadmap, guiding him not just in language but in life. His grandfather's voice seemed to echo from the pages, encouraging him to keep moving forward, one word at a time. From that point, Hiro approached his studies with a renewed sense of purpose. He knew there would still be moments of doubt, times when the path seemed uncertain, but he was prepared to face them. The journey was far from over, and as he looked toward the future, Hiro felt the quiet strength of his grandfather's legacy carrying him forward. Hiro's dedication to learning English and his renewed sense of purpose did not go unnoticed. One day, as he was gathering his books after class, Mr. Sato approached him with an enthusiastic smile. "Hiro, there's an opportunity you might be interested in," he said, handing Hiro a flyer. "There's an English speech competition coming up, sponsored by a foundation that promotes cultural exchange. The winner receives a chance to visit America." Hiro's eyes widened as he scanned the flyer, barely able to believe what he was reading. The competition required participants to deliver a speech in English on a topic close to their heart, and the prize was a fully funded trip to the United States. The idea of traveling to America, his grandfather's lifelong dream, filled Hiro with both excitement and fear. The thought of standing in front of an audience and delivering a speech in English felt overwhelming, but the opportunity was too perfect to ignore. Over the next few days, Hiro grappled with the decision. He knew how challenging it would be to compete, especially considering his limited experience with public speaking. Takumi, who listened to Hiro's concerns with an encouraging smile, urged him to take the chance. "You've worked so hard, Hiro. This is exactly the kind of opportunity you've been preparing for. Don't let fear hold you back." Inspired by Takumi's words and reminded of his grandfather's vision, Hiro decided to enter the competition. He knew the path ahead would be difficult, but the possibility of fulfilling his grandfather's dream drove him forward. With the encouragement of Mr. Sato and Takumi, Hiro began preparing his speech, determined to make the most of this opportunity. The days leading up to the competition were filled with intense preparation. Hiro spent hours crafting his speech, carefully selecting each word and phrase to ensure he conveyed the emotion and sincerity behind his story. He practiced every line in front of the mirror, adjusting his pronunciation, pacing, and tone with each attempt. Mr. Sato continued to mentor him, providing feedback and guidance as Hiro refined his delivery. The theme of his speech centered on the legacy of dreams and how they can be passed down through generations. Hiro wanted to honor his grandfather's memory, to express how deeply his life had been shaped by a dream that wasn't even his own. Yet, with each rehearsal, he felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him. This was more than a speech. It was a tribute, a way of sharing a piece of his grandfather's heart with the world. Despite his rigorous practice, anxiety began to creep in. He was well aware of the prestige of the competition and the skill of the other contestants. The fear of failing, of stumbling over his words, or letting down those who believed in him lingered in his mind. At times, the pressure felt overwhelming, and Hero found himself questioning if he was truly ready for such a challenge. One evening, as he rehearsed alone in his room, he paused, taking a deep breath. Remembering his grandfather's letter, he closed his eyes and allowed himself a moment of stillness. This was a journey he had chosen not out of obligation, but out of love. The memory of his grandfather's smile, the words written with hope in the notebook, and the encouragement from Takumi and Mr. Sato all grounded him. When the day of the competition arrived, Hero felt a sense of calm settle over him. The fear was still there, but it no longer held him back. His speech was ready, and he knew his grandfather's dream would be carried forward regardless of the outcome. With a final nod to himself, he stepped out, ready to face the audience, his heart filled with quiet determination. As Hero stood backstage, the murmur of the audience buzzed around him, each sound amplifying the butterflies in his stomach. He took a deep breath, clutching his grandfather's notebook, which he had brought along as a source of comfort and inspiration. Mr. Sato and Takumi had come to watch, their encouraging words replaying in his mind. When the announcer called his name, Hero felt his pulse quicken, but he reminded himself of his purpose to honor his grandfather and share a piece of his story with the world. He stepped onto the stage, the lights bright and blinding, making it hard to see the faces in the crowd. Focusing on a single point beyond the audience, Hero began his speech, his voice quiet at first, but growing steadier with each word. He spoke of his grandfather's dream, of the notebook filled with phrases that represented a hope that had never dimmed, even when reality had made it seem impossible. As he described his journey of learning English, the sacrifices, the setbacks, and the triumphs, he felt a surge of emotion rising within him. The story wasn't just about language, it was about legacy, the connection between generations, and the dreams that define us. By the time he reached the final lines, his voice carried a strength he hadn't known he possessed, resonating with the audience. When he finished, there was a brief silence, followed by warm applause. Hero took a bow, feeling a swell of relief and pride. As he exited the stage, Takumi greeted him with a wide grin and a pat on the back. "You did it, Hero. Your grandfather would be proud." Mr. Sato nodded with a proud smile. "You shared something very special today, Hero, that took courage." For the first time, Hero felt as though he had done justice to his grandfather's memory. Regardless of the outcome, he knew that he had fulfilled his purpose. He had given voice to his grandfather's dream, and that alone was worth every effort. Later that day, as the judges announced the results, Hiro's heart pounded in his chest. He didn't expect to win. The experience alone had been reward enough. But when they called his name as the winner, a mixture of disbelief and joy overwhelmed him. Takumi cheered loudly, and Mr. Sato applauded with a knowing smile, his pride evident. Hiro stepped forward to accept the prize, a trip to America, the very dream his grandfather had carried in his heart all those years. As he held the certificate, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment, as though he were finally walking the path his grandfather had dreamed of but never experienced. Over the next few weeks, Hiro prepared for his trip, his excitement growing with each passing day. He spent more time with Mr. Sato, who shared insights about American culture and practiced his conversational English with Takumi. His mother, though still cautious, gradually opened up to his plans, seeing the happiness and growth the journey had brought him. When the day of his departure arrived, Hiro felt a whirlwind of emotions. Saying goodbye to his mother and Takumi, he promised to bring back stories and experiences that would honor his family. With his grandfather's notebook in his bag, he boarded the plane, feeling a blend of excitement and gratitude. As he looked out the window, watching the familiar landscape fade beneath him, Hiro realized that he was finally carrying his grandfather's dream forward. The journey was not only a fulfillment of a promise, but the beginning of a new chapter in his own life. For the first time, he felt ready to embrace the unknown, knowing that his grandfather's legacy was alive within him, guiding him toward a future full of possibility. As Hiro stepped off the plane and into the bustling airport, he was greeted by a wave of unfamiliar sounds and sights. English conversations echoed around him, signs and announcements appeared in words he had once struggled to understand, and a sense of excitement mixed with nerves filled him. This was it, the dream his grandfather had cherished, the world he had envisioned but never seen. Hiro felt as if he were walking in his grandfather's footsteps, exploring the possibilities that had once seemed so distant. Throughout his first days, Hiro immersed himself in the culture, experiencing everything with a mixture of awe and curiosity. He navigated the city streets, marveling at the skyscrapers and the diversity of people around him. Every interaction, every brief conversation felt like an accomplishment, a testament to the hours he had spent studying and practicing. At a local cafe, he struck up a conversation with an older man who noticed Hiro's accent and asked where he was from. Hiro shared a bit about his journey, mentioning his grandfather and the promise he had made. The man listened with interest, offering words of encouragement. "You're carrying something very special with you," he said with a smile. "Not everyone would go so far to fulfill a dream like that." Hiro thanked him, feeling a surge of pride. Each day he ventured a little further, spoke a little more, and felt his confidence growing. With every sentence he shared, he felt a deeper connection to his grandfather's legacy, a bond that transcended distance and time. America was no longer a distant vision in his grandfather's notebook. It was real, vibrant, and now a part of Hero's own life. As his trip drew to a close, Hero took a quiet afternoon to reflect. He found a small park and sat on a bench beneath a tree, pulling out his grandfather's notebook. Flipping through the pages, he felt a bittersweet mixture of pride and sadness. This journey, which had started as his grandfather's dream, had transformed into something much more. It had become Hero's own path, a journey of self-discovery and resilience. Hero thought back to the struggles, the self-doubt, and the moments of triumph that had brought him here. Every step had been a part of his growth, shaping him in ways he hadn't expected. He realized that he was no longer just a boy honoring someone else's dream. He was now a young man ready to build his own. As he boarded the plane back to Japan, he gazed out the window, watching the city shrink beneath him. He clutched the notebook one last time, whispering a quiet thank you to his grandfather. The journey had taught him more than language or culture. It had shown him the power of legacy, the strength of resilience, and the beauty of dreams, even those passed down from one generation to another. When Hero returned home, he was greeted with a warmth and pride that filled him with gratitude. His mother hugged him tightly, her quiet support evident in her eyes, and Takumi listened eagerly to every story. Hero knew he had changed, grown not only in knowledge but in spirit. And with each word he shared, he felt his grandfather's presence, as though he were still walking beside him, guiding him forward. In the days that followed, Hero continued his studies, now with a renewed sense of purpose. His grandfather's dream had been fulfilled, but his own journey was only beginning. With every choice, every path he decided to take, Hero knew he was honoring a legacy, building his own future, while carrying the lessons of the past.